If we stay in touch and we're like, we might not be chatting daily, but we might
touch base.
Chat once
How
a
you
month,
been?
touch base, and like build a relationship. And then in 20 years, if I say, hey, Jason, can you help me out with this? It's far more likely you're gonna help me out, right? Because there's a relationship there. And that's a danger with email. People worry about mailing too much. The biggest mistake is mailing too little. That's a real risk, because then the relationship is worth nothing.
The Move Entrepreneur Evolved podcast. Get on it.
And we're back on another episode of the Moved Entrepreneur Evolved podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Moved, NOVD 30.com. It's a transformational entrepreneurial program that takes you into momentum fast. But today we have an awesome guest named Scott Bywater. What's up, brother? How you doing?
Yeah, good, Jason. Great to be here and be a part of it. So with such a cool guy with the guitar background and all that. Awesome.
You play guitar, or are you a music buff, or how do you?
No, I don't play guitar. I have thought about it. I thought, it'd be good just to let the creative juices sort of flow. But I have zero talent right now in guitar.
My uncle, my dad played most of my life, really all my life, and my uncles played as well. And it wasn't too many years back, maybe about 7 years ago. And I remember being at a campfire, and my uncle, and this goes in business as well, with everything, but he goes, check this out. And I was like, what? And he showed the guitar to me, and he kind of just goes like this, and he did two different chords, and he started doing it. And then he stops and he's all, and they think you're magic. And I thought that was it was a great analogy into almost anything, right? You learn a skill, and then all of a sudden people think you're magic. And then when you show them what the skill is, and they're like, oh, that's what it is. Oh, that's what I have to do.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's awesome.
So we're going to jump right in. Delivering world-class marketing breakthrough, visionary business owner, leading through copywriting. And this is a really good conversation, but I'm going to dive deeper into, were you a writer before? Where did this come back? Start from? Was it younger? Did you find yourself writing? What was that personality, maybe at a younger age, that might have connected with what you do today?
Yeah, so I certainly never had aspirations to be a writer where I was like, hey, 5 years old, I'm going to be a writer when I grow up, sort of thing. So it more eventuated from, I started out when I left school in sales and marketing type roles. So I did your door-to-door selling, you like cold call telemarketing, sort of more meeting-based sales, all of that sort of thing. So I did a lot of sales roles, probably from about 17 to 24. And then at the age of 24, I decided to hang out my shingle I started the business. I mean, long story. I won't go into all the nitty gritties, but I started the business as a hair salon after going to a Brad Sugar seminar. And he's like, start up a business and build it up and then sell it. And we started it up and we sort of built it up, but we didn't quite pull it off. And then I decided I was then I put a classified ad into the newspaper, which is showing my age a bit. Now it would be a Google ad, but it was like, marketing. Can't even say
Craigslist, because that would be exactly. Too old too.
yeah, exactly. So it was like marketing genius, proven results, something like that. And I would get calls and I would get appointments and all that. And after I'd been doing that for a while, maybe 12 months or something, my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, she saw this ad from Reader's Digest, and she's like, you need to go for that, for that job. And it was for a copywriter. And I'm like, okay. So she had quite strong intuition. So anyway, I went for it. Long story short, I didn't get the job, but I did get the confidence. And then that confidence sort of lurched me onto onto specializing in copywriting. And I learned at that time, I learned the power, I didn't really realize it, of positioning, because when I changed from a marketing consultant to a copywriter, I 10 times my income, admittedly from a reasonably low base at the time, but it was just like, oh, this is, I'm onto something here. And then that sort of kicked off that, and really that's, you hit the right market with the right offer at the right time, and and things just click. So
I think that's pretty cool. I think that's actually pretty cool that you actually told the story that, because that's when you have a spouse that supports you, they want the best for you, right? I mean, they want the best. And in that story, basically, she has you kind of go out there, but that was a twist. Like, I didn't even get the job.
Yeah.
But you realize that's cool though. You realize like that was the turning point. That was when you realized, wait a minute here, the confidence to go out there and kind of put yourself in that position. So when you looked at sales, and I go into this a lot, in especially if I were to talk to a copywriter or so, but there really is differences between a sale and the copywriting, and then maybe the marketing or advertising side. When you were in the sales side, you kind of are on the front end. Did you have to kind of rewire your brain so that you didn't think of the way that you would have to sell? Did you have to kind of rewire your brain to be a copywriter instead of a salesman? Because those two can kind of play some funky differences.
Well, they're actually quite similar in many ways. Like the definition of copywriting is essentially salesmanship in print. Mm-hmm. That's a definition of it. So if we look at it from that perspective, I'd been doing sales almost like unconsciously training for copywriting for those 7 years or so, right? From when I left school to that, without even knowing, almost doing like a degree in copywriting. And so when I started to move into that copywriting and with the printed word, the concepts I'd learned, or the phrases or whatever, would come back to me. And also, I think you generate an understanding, particularly when you're like, I would say at the time, like doing telemarketing and that sort of stuff was it's a great way to learn fast, because you're making like, I don't know how many calls you're making an hour or a day.
About 40 to 60 calls. Yeah.
Yeah. You're making like 40 to 60 calls a day. So you're really learning human nature almost unconsciously, because you're just like bang, bang it. And even if it's like a 10-second call and it's like, no, mate, not interested, you're still learning how to read sort of situations. So I think that taught me a lot unconsciously, which I'm perhaps not even aware that I even learned about the whole human nature side of things, and the sales process, because all of it's intertwined. Marketing, sales, copywriting, it's all intertwined, different, but there's connections between all of them.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a lot of connections. I find sometimes there's a brain that is used differently, because a lot of times, we started earlier, and I kind of share this story. I don't always tell the tactics that we use, but I shared with you when we kind of got on here. Before we start, I try to find a tempo. I'm trying to find like, mannerisms, and that comes back from old salesmanship, where I'm just trying to mirror somebody and try to put myself in a position where, do you feel comfortable? Do you have a good place that you're here? And I'm curious in those things, when you create relationships in copy, are you finding yourself creating that same process as well? You're trying to create a tempo and you're trying to find that. How does that process work for you?
Yeah, so it's sort of, you're creating it on a mass scale, if you like. So that's what I love about copy, is it's like sales is very one-on-one and it's deep and that sort of thing. Whereas copy, you can almost build a relationship with thousands of people at once.
Mhm.
And for me, like the process I would go through, like when I take on a client, is you go through quite a deep research phase. Like on a project, research would probably take up about 40% of your time, or should take up about 40% of your time. The writing is actually the easiest part of the process. So you're going through this, like you would send a survey out to the list. Like let's say you work with a client, they've got a list of 5,000 names, whatever it is. You'd send a survey out to start with and ask them about their frustrations, ask them about the questions they have for you, ask them about, if you could wave a magic wand, what would they have you do? All of these sort of questions. And in many ways, that's getting the tempo. You're getting the tempo of the list. You're finding out what are the issues which they've got, which they need help with. And then from there, you can enter the conversation going on in their mind. Because if you try and write copy before that, you're going to have the most beautiful prose. But if you're suffering from, if you love guitars and I'm talking about the flute, doesn't matter how eloquently I talk about the flute, your interest level is about 20% of where it could be. So, and there's distinctions within that, right? You might be learning about chords at the moment, and I'm talking about some other aspect of the guitar, and you've already done that, so you're not interested in what I'm talking about. So it's understanding that is probably the most important thing, because an average copywriter, an average writer who understands the marketplace, can do better than a great writer who doesn't understand the target market.
Is that and a lot of things we go through, and we've written a lot of emails on our and things like that, and it's almost like this never-ending education of trying to figure out who is this person that you're trying to sell to. And I think it's always interesting because it's really like a group of people. It's one person, but it's like a group of that one person. And I always thought that was like so fascinating, but also so difficult because your feedback takes longer.
Yes. Yeah. No, absolutely. So it's a group of people, and you can get into like the dissection, right? You can go deep. So you can do things like, for example, rather than starting with a traditional lead magnet, you could start with a decision tree where, for example, so rather than saying, I've got you could have it, let's say it's a digital marketing company. What digital marketing strategy is best for you right now? Yeah, and then it asks you a whole heap of questions before it asks for your email address. And it might be, what's the average dollar of a sale? What's your average dollar of a sale? What's the size of your email list? What's this? What's that? And if you want to go into that sort of segmentation, then you could literally have end up with 6 or 12 avatars, right? That you're writing to, because someone with a list of 100,000 is very different to someone with a list of 500.
Yeah.
So the more deeply you segment, the better results that you will get. But you've also got to take into account the opportunity cost of the segmenting. So and get the balance right between the two.
Yeah.
So that's very important one. I mean, the other thing from that is if you look at, let's say, someone like Adele Ravella's work with the buyer personas, that's quite incredible, where you actually get on the phone and understand how you actually go about buying, which is quite fascinating. So how do you actually go about making that buying decision? For instance, I did that with one client once, and I asked them, I called their prospects who didn't buy from them but bought from their competition. They were a solar company. And what they found was the reason that particular prospect didn't go with him was because the competitor had another type of technology which he thought, suited him better. And my client didn't even know that technology was even around, or that's why he lost the business, right?
Yeah.
So it's understand. So not having that insight, who knows how many clients that was actually happening to, but once you've got that insight, you can make better decisions. Whereas when you don't know what you don't know, you can only make decisions on what you know. So that sort of knowledge is so insightful. And that's why I'm such a big fan of research, because once you know that, the better the research, the better the decisions about the copy, about the marketing strategy, about the sales process, all of that, the better the decisions. And the other one, just as an offshoot that you'll like, I mean, one of the best ways to write copy is to record your best salesperson, right? If you're in a company, record your best salesperson, find out what they're saying, what the words they're saying, because that's working real time, and use that as part of your research to create the copy.
That's actually a good little hack there. So utilize your top salesman, record that, and then you're basically looking for the reactions because they're right there in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got the reactions and the feedback loop from the customer, and you've got like the script of what the salesperson's using. What are they using? Because if it works, if I'm talking to you right now and something I say convinces you to buy my product, odds are it's going to work on the written word as well. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, you don't have the real-time feedback that you do with face-to-face sales interaction, but it's still the same set of eyeballs, whether they're listening to me talk or they're watching a video or they're reading an email. It's still the same set of eyeballs behind that, and the same thinking happens behind those eyeballs.
Do you, if let's say you had like 100,000 lists, do you like to break that list up and use different copy per 10,000, or what are some things that you like to do to break that list up? Or do you just send it to all 100,000? Okay.
In terms of breaking that list down, and that sort of thing?
Breaking that list down so that you can utilize different. So with ads, it's quite structurally. You could just run a couple different ad sets, and then those ad sets are going to give you your feedback. Do you like to create, for lack of better words, ad sets, email set segmentation, and then break that 100,000 list by using the same call to action at the end? Do you like to change the subject line, the body a little bit, maybe the headline, whatever that is? Do you like to tweak that per segmented a number of let's say contacts that you have? Do you like to do it that way, or in micros, or do you like to just maybe 4 different chunks? How do you like to do that?
So there's different ways you could do it. Like, I was talking to a client recently, and he's got a list of about 70,000. And the way we're breaking it down is like recency. So they're all buyers. So how recently did they buy? Because they're going to be a different level of interest. So in terms of the tagging and segmenting, frequency, meaning how many times did they buy, and monetary, meaning how much did they spend. So that's one way that you can tag that and go, and it's like, oh, okay, I know who to approach, how to approach, all of that sort of thing. But they can also be tagged, for instance, in terms of, let's say you've got that 100,000 list, and let's just use a digital marketing agency because we're both familiar with marketing. And you might create let's say a white paper on Google AdWords. So you say, hey, I've created this, great white paper on Google AdWords. You can download it here as an example. Probably sexier copy than that, and you might do several emails starting with content, so it's valuable and drive down. But then at the end of it, they go, oh yeah, I want to download that. So they click on it, they download it, they go through into their details. Then what you can have is have several follow-up emails specifically related to Google AdWords, and even like let's say to book in an AdWords consultation with you as an example. But you're not going to send that to the whole list, because maybe they don't care about AdWords. They care about Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever. So that's a really good way to segment. So the emails, let's say, go to your whole list, like broad, but then you bring people into a room. So it's a little bit like if you go to a presentation and at the end of someone does this amazing talk, and then at the end of it goes, listen, if anyone wants to stay behind afterwards, I'm going to be talking about my XYZ mastermind. And then the people who stay behind afterwards they're interested. They want to be there. So that's another really good way to segment that, to segment that list. And then anyone who joins that, if you've got an AdWords thing that comes up in the future, you've obviously got that group tagged, and you can directly approach that group without slamming the entire list type of thing and devaluing. Because what I find happens with email lists is it can go one of two ways. One is people tend to write love letters to their list. So they'll go, they'll just send all this amazing content and everything, and you think, oh, this is great, but never ask for the sale, right? So and then if they're not leveraging it and monetizing it, they sort of often don't continue with it. And then you've got the other side, which is like the scorched earth approach, right? Where it's just like sell, 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 sell. And then I've seen that happen. And what happens over time is a list, it's a little bit like me calling you up every day, Jason, with a new network marketing opportunity. Pretty soon you're not going to take my calls, right? You're going to be like, hey, I'm busy. I can't take this. So what I like, or what I've developed, is a way called the third way. And the way the third way works is you're starting out with every email, or the majority of emails, they're very strong on the content side, specifically focused on the issues that the client has, because they're based on the specific challenges that the client has. And then from there, segueing into, from there, they actually segue into a soft pitch at the end using an open loop. And an open loop is it's what you see with all the TV shows do, all the morning shows, all that sort of thing. It's like, hey, come back after the break and we'll show you how to grow a tadpole on your head. And you're like, I really want to know how to grow a tadpole on my head. And you hang around for 5 minutes, go through all the ads, and you're there at the end of the break. So you want to be doing that really three times in your email. You want to do that at the beginning to get them to read the email. You want to do it at the end to get them to click the email. And then you want to do it again to get them to read the next email. So you want to have 3 open loops within each email to ensure that there's constantly this whole curiosity factor going, which is really just a strategy that has been going on for decades through the television. It happens. Every TV show relies on the same strategy.
How much time do you find yourself, we'll put these emails out, and, we have a small masterclass that's going to come up, and write an email through it. How much time do you like to spend? Do you find yourself like on the entertainment side, you just kind of feed the list a little bit? And I think that was kind of what we talked about, is like a little bit of entertainment, right? And then when you go into something that's going to be like the sale, how much time do you find yourself dedicated to like an email?
It really depends. Like if I'm writing them for myself, because I know myself, I sort of know what I'm going to write, all of that sort of thing, I can do them quite quickly. Even like I've developed a strategy with clients where we actually interview them based on questions they know, and then have that call then transcribed, and then use that so it actually sounds like it's in there, it's very much in their voice. So that's faster than like your sales emails. Whereas if you're doing, let's say a sales email, they can take time, because if it's a launch and you're going out to a large list and you need to make it convert, or even if it's like an evergreen funnel, you want to dedicate like some real time to getting that, as versus if it's a nurturing email. So it can vary. I mean, it can vary from 15 minutes, to 1 to 2 hours to put together an email, depending on the purpose, who you're writing it for, how much research is involved, all of that sort of thing, to put that, to put an email together, sort of thing. So yeah.
That's cool. I think there's, with email, I think it's always fascinating because it's almost like I don't know, it's like the golden ticket that never goes away, right? People have not gotten rid of email. And, I remember, what was it, 99 or something like that? I got my first email, right around 99 or something, like maybe earlier, 98 or 97. And all of the transitions of all social media platforms, MySpace, Google, all these things. And, this thing has stuck around. You think that this is going to kind of be like the mailbox for 70 years, the postal service or whatever that is? You think email is going to continue to be that foundational piece that just doesn't go away?
I don't think it's going to go anywhere, email, because, and I just can't see email ever, not in the near future, going anywhere, because, but also the advantage from email as a business owner is that you own the list. Mm-hmm. So whereas when you're on your socials, your Facebook, your LinkedIn, your Instagram, all of that sort of thing, you don't own that list. You can be, as we've seen in recent years, you can be deplatformed, you can be censored, you can be all of those sort of things. So it's not, you might have 10 million followers on Facebook, or hundreds of thousands in your Facebook group, but they're not your list. So I'm very big on, hey, let's work out ways to do it. Like even with my LinkedIn posts, and I didn't do this for years, and it probably cost me a lot, because you've got your, let's say, Gary Vaynerchuk's out there going, hey, just put out heaps of content, and it'll make you a star, and you'll become rich and famous, and et cetera, et cetera. I personally have not found that to be true. I do think it does build a lot of credibility and relationship, but as you know, business isn't just about being well known. You want to actually make sales at the end of the day. So what I do, let's say with my LinkedIn posts, I'll put a content out which all leads with which leads with story. So it's very strong on story. So it's so it engages people, then gives them, like I've got a series at the moment where I'm doing like headline hacks, then gives them the headline hack. So it's something really specific and valuable. And then at the end, it's like, hey, if you enjoyed this headline hack, you can get 100 more of them in my special report. The link is in the comments. So what I'm looking to do is pull everyone across to my email list from the social media thing, because then what I can do is I can tag, I can segment, I can follow up, and they're not going on LinkedIn and maybe seeing me if the algorithm is all works, and then one day I disappear because they click on something else and mine doesn't make it in their feed. This way I can know it's gonna cut through to them. So, and I found the thing with email, right? And why a lot of people go, email doesn't work. Like it doesn't work for me. I send out these emails, it doesn't work. But here's the thing. Email doesn't give you the dopamine hits, because I can send out an email.
That's pretty good, man. Hold on. That's pretty good.
Yes.
I you know what? I never thought about it like that. It is pretty flat.
But it doesn't give it to you. Because if
it doesn't. I would never date emailing.
No. You put an Instagram post out and you get like 50 likes, within an hour.
Yeah.
And you're like,
you're
feeling
right.
Good.
Yeah.
Email.
Yeah. It's almost like you just send that little boat out and you're like, is it good? Is it good? Is it good?
Yes.
That's true. You're right. It doesn't give you the dopamine kick. Huh.
And that's why I think many people are more into social media than they are into email, because, well, email, number one, you got to build the list, right? You got to create the list, which creates effort.
Which you could do through social media.
Which you can do through social media. Yeah. But then you got to create a lead magnet, and there's a few different steps involved. You can't just like have a brain fart and go, bang, and you get the dopamine hits, right? You got to actually put effort in. So,
well, I mean, you might run ads to generate that and generate the list, and you have some ways of coming through social and things like that. But yeah, I like that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And that's why I love to work with clients with email lists, because it's almost like a pre-qualifier, right? Because if you build an email list, you've actually, you've got follow through, you've got marketing nous, you've got all of those sort of things happening. And and where people fall over, I think, is they go, I sent it out, it didn't work, but it's like, you're not getting you can't like an email. You can't go, like, you got to actually respond and say, hey, Jason, that was a great email because blah, 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 blah. And how many people do that? Nobody does, like very few, you rarely get it, like that doesn't happen. So, and then even if you comment, like a lot of people comment, let's say on LinkedIn, so that they can work the algorithm and they can be seen and they can, all of that sort of thing. Well, if you comment to an email, it's just going back to that person. So there's less motivation, but what happens is it just cuts through on a deeper level. And if I want to get, like, I'm doing a joint venture for an email marketing program I'm launching at the moment with a JV partner. He sent an email out to his list. I've got 60 people registered for a webinar. So if you look at that, that's from an email. With a social post, not only is it not, what's the word for it? Not only is it not almost kosher to do that, it's just not the right culture. It's like going to a party and it's like your friends inviting you over a party and you start like flogging them Tupperware or something. Do you know what I mean? It's not the right social environment to do it. Yeah. Whereas email, it's far more just accepted. So you can put all those people, and that is the power of email. And the other advantage of email is you can do, once you have a list, then you can access other people's lists, because you can sort of do cross promotions, providing you believe in what they're offering and all that sort of thing, which can grow your list even more. So it opens up just so many opportunities that the social that the social side doesn't. And you can schedule. You can say, hey, I'm going to do a product launch, and I've got these 7 emails that are going to go out. And I've literally done product launches with admittedly large lists, but where they've made $500,000 and more within like a week of that launch and some build up. Try and do that with LinkedIn or Facebook or any other medium.
You just can't get the volume.
It's very, very, very difficult to do. Yeah. Whereas with email, you can do it. And that's why I think it's not as sexy. And but it gets, like, according to litmus.com, I believe it's a 42 times ROI.
Yeah, I've heard that
with email.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Like, you try getting that with Facebook ads, 42 times ROI. No, not to say Facebook ads don't do Facebook ads, because Facebook ads has another benefit. It can build you an email list and it can give you scale, right? Like if I've got a list of 5,000 people, I'm not going to build a $1 billion company on that. Whereas if I've got a Facebook funnel that's working and I can then go out to hundreds of millions, then it has more scale. But on the flip side, it's much harder to work, which is why I always say, start with email. If you've got an email list, start with email, and then use that money and that cash flow to then flip back into building the cold funnel.
One of the things that I always hear, and that is, like, when people respond, unsubscribe and everything like that, sometimes they get so bummed out, like they wrote a wrong email or something like that. What's your thoughts on, what people's emotions should be through, sending out an email and then maybe not getting much response, to number two, if I get bad feedback, is that going to stop me? And then number three is, as you go through that, how willing are you to email them again once you kind of, not someone that unsubscribes, but when people, they question themselves on how often should I email my list? And so many times when I get marketers and things like that, I'm in a copywriting world, a guy like Frank Kern or something like that, man, I get an email from that guy like every day. And I'm still not like upset. I'm like, well, I guess he's just part of my email box or something. What is it that people need to switch in their minds? Because that is probably a huge one. Like I shouldn't send emails to them twice a week or something like that. But when you get to the big boys and you start to get with the players, they're they're literally knocking on your door going, did you want some roses? Oh no. Did you want some oranges? Did you want some? They're in your face. So somebody that's maybe looking at doing more email, what should their mindset be about that process?
Yeah, I think you almost want to look at it like a talkback radio show, right? So I'm a big fan of sending more emails, right? Like I sent them daily for probably 10 years in terms of emails, just constantly, day in, day out, every weekday. I don't think I did weekends, and you know what? Very little pushback. Occasionally you'd get someone who is upset and would write you this letter about how they hate you or something like that. But
and they're mean. They're so mean.
I've had people. Yeah, you do get that occasionally, but it's a rarity.
It totally is. Yeah.
And the unsubscribe rate is low. And if you're gonna put yourself out there anywhere, there's you're gonna get some people who are, you're dealing with all these strange humans, and everyone's different and everyone sees things from a different perspective. But most humans are basically good people, right? They're basically good people. So if they're going to unsubscribe, they're just going to click on unsubscribe and they're going to go if it doesn't suit them. And if they do unsubscribe, they're not that interested in what you've got to offer if they're unsubscribing, right? So I've always found the biggest danger is it's not in emailing your list too much. It's in not emailing your list, because if you want your email list to very quickly decline in value, just don't email it for 3 to 6 months, and that's what will decline, because it's a lot like a personal relationship. So if we have this conversation, Jason, and then I don't talk to you for 20 years, and one day I call you up and ask for a favor, you're going to be like, I can barely remember this guy, and like this is just like really weird, right? Whereas if we stay in touch and we're like, we might not be chatting daily, but we might
touch base. How you been?
Touch base, and like build a relationship. And then in 20 years, if I say, hey Jason, can you help me out with this? It's far more likely you're gonna help me out, right? Because there's a relationship there. And that's a danger with email. People worry about mailing too much. The biggest mistake is mailing too little. That's a real risk, because then the relationship is worth nothing. Do you know what I mean? So I might, let's say you're starting that friendship, and maybe, you can go overkill, right? Like let's say we start the friendship and tomorrow I call you up and say, hey Jason, do you want to buy my, I've got a really cool guitar course. You want to buy it? And then I call you the next day and I ask you to buy something else. And the next day, then it's like, you've got givers and you've got takers and you've got matches, right? If you look at the, the three sort of, not functions, personality styles, but the three ways people are. Yeah. I'm big on always being a giver, but almost like you always, it's not totally true. Like sometimes you have a sale and you do hard pitch, but you've got to earn the right to do that. Do you know what I mean? So you've got to earn the right to actually do that by building a relationship. So it's a lot
like dating. It's so much like dating. And I think that people forget that it really is this relationship that you're creating and kind of pushing people through. I'm curious if we can dig a little bit into some fun stories, or maybe some great victories, or maybe eat some ones. I always like the ones that we say, man, this was a butcher. Like, I jacked this whole thing up. And since you've had a long enough career, what are some of those like victories and some of those, man, that didn't go? Because I think there's so many people, especially on the internet, is they really do see the personas of people, and they think that their campaigns are just cranking all the time. Like, they have this perfect wand. And so it'd be fun to hear maybe some of your stories of, like, I don't want to say trials and tribulations, but the learning curves.
Yes. Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm just, I mean, like tribulations, I guess, was like that time when I did the, well, that actually started because I launched my own product, and I actually launched it with another guy who was a really good copywriter, but we sort of cookie cutted the launch process. So we didn't really do the proper research. We just sort of, swipe files and let it out, and we launched this product, and it didn't do great. I think we made, we might have made several $1,000s worth of sales, but it wasn't, the big home run that we were looking for, right? So then a month later, I got asked by a client to run a launch from them, and this one I thought, okay, I'm going to do the research properly this time. So I went in, I did the deep dive research, I worked out exactly what they want. I wrote the landing page based on exactly what the clients told us. I wrote all the emails based on exactly what the clients told us. And and that ended up being a $500,000 launch. So, and that wasn't of a $5,000 product. That was like a $100 product, right? So there's a heap of transactions
on an email list.
Yeah, on an email list. Yeah.
Wow,
large
impressive.
email list. But it was a big launch, and I went through and with that client did a number of 6-figure launches over the years. But that was and that was a big learning about the whole research, right? Like, you need to know who you're writing to, what their frustrations are, all of that sort of thing, in order to hit it out of the park, sort of thing. So that was a very it was just fascinating to see the contrast in the two approaches.
Well, also, we definitely have, we could be right now at this time, there's some funky stuff going on in the financial markets. There's a lot of things that are getting kind of weird. I would think that email marketing is really where you need to make sure you collect that list, because like you had said, that's your opener. You own that. So in a sense, as you go through these things, if ads get more expensive or whatever, you have a way to keep that in the loop to make a living. What do you think we're kind of going is, you think that if we go through these type of recessions, the email becomes more important, or do you think people focus on other things?
I think relationships become more important.
Oh, that's good.
Overall, right? So
good move. That was good.
So and email is a form of relationship, essentially, right? So if you can create mass relationships with people, then it's because what you want is where, I think what's the book? I don't know if it's a book or an article or something, but it's 1,000 True Fans. And it's like,
who said that? I remember that. It was 1,000 True Fans. I remember that. Or was it Dan Kennedy?
No, I know Tim, the 4-Hour Work Week guy. He didn't write it, but he's referenced it before. And I'm pretty sure you Google it and you'll find it. But it's sort of based on the foundation of, if you've got 1,000 true fans, that's all you need to have a really solid income, really solid lifestyle, really, do you know what I mean? Like having that sort of thing. And I think it applies to email. I also think it applies to networking, right? Because this hit me years ago. I was reading a book called The 80-20 Manager by the guy's name were Richard Koch.
Okay.
And I started to go back because I wasn't a believer in networking until then. And
Like physical physical networking.
Yeah, like physical networking, like meeting new people, like connecting, all that sort of thing. And then when I went back and I looked at where all my best clients come from, I'm like, oh, I've made 100 grand from that client. How did I get that client? Oh, that's interesting. I got them through, but it wasn't a direct connection. It was almost like 4 or 5 deep.
Like that's interesting.
I met that person, through that person, through that person, through that person, through that person. And I did it on quite a, sort of 80-20 my client list, and started to look at where they all came from. And I never realized it until that moment that they were all generated, not all of them, but a vast percentage of them through networks of one kind or another. And I'm like, oh, there is something to this networking. The penny never dropped. It's almost like it's obvious, but it's not obvious, until you actually dissect it. And I think back to the question, like networking relationships are so powerful. Even through this period, my business has done really well. Yeah, and a lot of it boils down to just all the things we're talking about now: the networking, the emails, all of that sort of thing. It's just so powerful, and you get and it's like it might be 4 or 5 deep, but it's like, do you know what I mean? So it's like, and this is where it comes to the long game over the short game, because it's like we're programmed, I think, to think short game, right? To go, I meet Jason at a networking event, I hand him my card, and I try to get a meeting with him to sell him my guitar courses or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and if that doesn't happen, then I go, oh, that was a bit of a failure. Do you know what I mean? It's like that. I didn't get anything out of that networking event. Whereas if you play long game, and you do it, and you look at it over a period of years, and you focus on being a go-giver rather than rather than just a go-getter. I'm very much into the go-giver sort of thing. Like, I
like that. I haven't heard that. A go-getter, a go-giver. That's pretty good. I think some people are going to steal that. A go-giver.
I can't claim it. Bob Berg is written like a
I'm not going to take it all the credit, but you know what? On this show, we're Scott gets all credit for this. If he writes a book, we will go ahead and back him up. So we got you back.
So but the whole go-giver sort of thing is where you focus on giving first, right? Like you don't like, because you've got to, like a fire doesn't come alight. You got to give things to the fire. You got to give it paper. You got to put a light on it. You got to get all the kindling right. Do you know what I mean? So it's like when you give first, things tend to naturally come back. And it's such a better way to do business. It's same with your email list, with your relationships, and it's almost contrarian, because most people are doing the opposite. Most people are doing the opposite. So when you go contrary and you focus on the other approach and you play, so most people are playing the short game and being more in that go-getter methodology. Whereas if you play the long game and you'd be more in the go-giver methodology, it's a contrarian way to do things. At the same stage, like let's say if we apply to email marketing, you do need to, everyone in business needs to eat, right? So, and that's where, like the third way sort of thing is where you have the open loop at the end. So you've got the balance between the two sort of thing, and you're still generating sales along the way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think that, and maybe this makes sense. Maybe there's something that maybe would come out of this, but for many years I was younger and I learned how to sell in specific areas. And the short game was become a very good closer, right? You'd be able to create the relationship really quick and then be able to close them. And then what happened is I ended up working for Harley Davidson and selling motorcycles. I was a young guy. And I remember having that attitude, and I was like, wait a minute, these guys come back. Like, they're going to come back to the dealer, and next thing you know, you're like, wait, I got to actually be able to manage the relationship. And what I think that in this, maybe a good analogy is like, some people will come to a Harley Davidson dealer and maybe just buy the t-shirt, or maybe they'll come to the dealer and just kind of check things out and create kind of this fun relationship, figure out what it's all about. And then maybe 6 months later, they end up buying the motorcycle. Obviously there's ones that'll buy in the beginning, but they'll buy at the end. And I think that kind of the conversation that we're having is like, no one's coming into your store. Like, there's not enough time for them to come into your ecosystem to kind of find out what's going on here and to look around a little bit. And it sounds like even in this conversation, your emails are about keeping them in the store and keeping them kind of wondering what's going on. Maybe there's a new hook of a story that's going to happen next week, and I got to kind of tell you next week. And, you're keeping them on this story until you kind of say, hey, by the way, either they say you sell motorcycles, or, hey, by the way, we have a motorcycle if you'd like to buy one. And I think that what we've done is like, we've removed ourselves a little bit, thinking that, and I like how you brought the getting back out to networking, that really we still are people. We're still people, and I thought that's kind of interesting. You think that taps kind of the idea of the conversations of email marketing and how we have offshoot stores? Because we don't really go to stores as like we used to, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like email is like, there's this book called They Ask You Answer. And he also talks about it. He's also featured in Utility, a guy called Marcus Sheridan. And he was selling swimming pools. And what he found was the average sales conversion in an appointment was 10% across the board when selling swimming pools. But if they'd absorbed 30 or more pieces of content, now he was referring to blogs because he could track it through HubSpot, I think it was. He said, but the same concept applies to email. If they'd absorbed 30 or more pieces of content, the conversion rate jumped to 80% in that sales meeting.
Wow.
So it's like, so the whole thing is, and that's what I've always found. If someone has been on my email list for a long time and they've been absorbing and they've been reading, and then they reach out and book an appointment, the conversion rate is quite high because my emails have already done all the nurturing for me, right? And then it's like having the team bounce the ball in a basketball game up and give it to the guy standing next to the net, and he can just like jump up and slam dunk it. That's all he has to do. Whereas if you get a let's say you get a lead off a Facebook ad and they book an appointment with you straight away, well, then it's your job in that sales meeting. You've got to almost like bounce the ball all the way up, and plop it in the net, sort of thing. So, and that's why like people go, oh no, word of mouth is perfect for me because like people will pay more. The only reason that is because of trust. But how do you develop mass trust? So the problem with word of mouth is it's not by chance, because you do all these networking things to make it happen, but it's unpredictable.
You can't scale it. You can't call them and be like, recommend me more.
Exactly. It just happens. So you create all these loose connections and relationships, and it comes through, but you can't like go, okay, I'm going to book 5 appointments a week and hire a salesperson to take the calls and do this and do that. Do you know what I mean? It's hard. Whereas with email, you can do that on more of a mass scale. Build the relationships, book the appointments, all of that sort of thing, and build that trust up, so they're at a higher level by the time they book in that meeting.
Well, this is incredible, man. You've brought a lot of knowledge to this. You never know when people come on, and fortunately, I'm always blessed to get great people, and I'm always excited at the end. And you gave a lot of knowledge, and not only that, just broke it all down, and I really appreciate it. How do people find you, man?
Yeah. So probably the best place to go to is www.copywritingthatsells.com.au. which is just as it sounds, copywriting.sells.com.au. And if you go there as well, on the homepage, you'll see a report for a product called, or for a report called The Third Way. And that will also put you on my email list. So but that talks you through what we've been talking about here, has examples of how to write the emails and the difference with the open loops and all of that sort of thing. So yeah.
That's cool. And you got some new projects you're working on, right?
Yeah. So I'm actually creating an email marketing. It's about to be launched, an email marketing product, which goes through all this in a lot of depth, which is super exciting, as well as just the day-to-day operations of running the business and building out campaigns for clients and all that sort of thing.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I can guarantee that if you guys get on and get on his list, it sounds like you're going to be part of that launch as well.
Yes.
Perfect.
Absolutely. You'll find out about it. It's called the Simple Email ROI System. So it's designed to be there's a lot of complex stuff out there about emails, but it's designed to be like easy to execute, so that, I can't see the point in creating a course unless the clients actually execute it. So it's designed to make that happen.
So with this, kind of closing this thing out, I think we're going to say two different things. One is get yourself on Scott's email list. Don't mess around. And then I think he's also probably going to tell you, start emailing your list today.
Yes.
Get moving.
100%. Start email. Even if you want like a really good one, email to send out is just, hey, and normally I'd set it up on SurveyMonkey and all that, but you could just say, hi Jason, quick question. What's the biggest challenge you're suffering from in regards to your marketing right now, or your accounting right now, or whatever your business in, and just see what response come back.
And you don't and keep it easy, keep it simple.
Keep it simple. And then a really simple way to do it is, if they respond, then create an email, answering their questions. You could also ask, what questions do you have that you'd like me to cover in your emails? You get a dozen questions back, and then you start firing off and just answering those.
Really, now you got 3 weeks worth of content to kind of break out and individually bring in.
Yeah, exactly. So so I'm a big fan of, as you probably picked up, of email.
Well, I always try to respect your time, but I have a feeling you and I could have done this for an extra 2 hours.
Yes. I don't think we would have lost topics to talk about.
Wouldn't have at all. So, there's certain guys like you, I probably would love to have you back on, and everybody would have you back on. So I'm going to throw that back out. We'll make sure that we invite you back. I want to thank you for being on the Moved Entrepreneur Evolved podcast. Thanks a lot, Scott. It's been another amazing one. We appreciate you always. And everybody out there in the Move Entrepreneur Evolved world, always remember to go back and look at other podcast guests. A great guest is Eli Wild. He was one of Anthony Robbins' top salespeople. You can go back and listen to that one as well. Thank you so much, Scott. You're an awesome guy, and I appreciate your time, and so does everybody else. Thanks a lot, brother.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me, man.
If you like this episode, make sure you smash the like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just like Nike is to athletes, Moved is to entrepreneurs.